Hey there, you guys know I really love appreciating mods. It's great when the people make more content for the Half-Life community for free. Even mods that have flaws to them or mods that are obviously made by a beginner. I always try to see the potential and the upsides. But today, I'm presenting you with what is very likely the worst mod ever made. Half-Life Hourglass. Even though there are barely any redeemable qualities, I will still do a full summary, analysis and review of this mod like I do usually, and showcase exactly why I am calling this the worst mod to ever exist with my full chest. There's a high chance of this video getting demonetized, so if you have the funds left over, consider becoming a member or just leaving a donation in the comments, or just subscribing. Anything that makes the fact that I made this video worth it. Half-Life Hourglass' strongest moment is the beginning, simply because we don't know what's coming. We awake in what looks to be a galactic apartment. We play as Gordon Freeman, age 30, which means this is taking place 3 years after the events of Half-Life 1. This mod was released in 2001, 3 years before Half-Life 2's release. At this point, people were still making up their own sequels. Sometimes this can be really cool, and other times we get something like Hourglass. On top of our theoretical physics PhD, we are now also in ITR Special Forces training. Our exact position is being a time-space enforcement officer with interstellar time reassurance, Inc. There's more yapping, but that's the most important points. We now get to explore this timeline management facility in Half-Life 1 intro fashion, just with a lot less interactions. To be clear, there are none outside of the standard ones. I repeat myself often in videos when I say that mods adding little interactions to characters is important. And this mod shows exactly why that is. This mod feels dead from the get-go. Cold. Sure, this can be the vibe you're going for. If you're making a mod set in the world of 1984, for example, then you may just want that. But in this case, it doesn't really seem intentional at all, since they do still converse when interacted with. Things suddenly start disappearing. First a computer, then humans and furniture. Kinda ominous and not yet further explained. Also again, another case of the place seeming dead, because why does nobody seem to care about this? Well, actually, one person cares. We hear a security guard outside the door, committing unaliving, using voice lines that don't really fit together tonally.
Help me. Somebody, please help. Please help me.
It can't take much more of this. I wish it hadn't come to this. End of the line.
Not sure what vibe this is trying to give off. If it's anything other than humorous, then this mod failed in that. Like, what do you mean? And on the line, we receive some weapons shortly afterwards, which include a pretty cool sniper, a new shotgun, a pretty sick looking knife, and the Glock. We then get our first mission briefing. Yeah, these are always pretty long. I'm gonna sum it up very shortly though. We have to fix time-space errors caused by Mr. G-Man, hinting that that is actually G-Man's name. We are thus sent to points in the past across space to correct these errors. The mod can basically be separated into the specific missions across time we embark on. The first one will place us on Earth. Our goal is to find and destroy the G-Man's vault. Did this mod predict Half-Life Alyx? With this segment on Earth comes the largest reason this mod is awful. Let me start with the positives. The city here looks okay. Yeah, that's kinda it. The first thing that happens is we randomly get to listen to a woman being beaten up in an apartment that then gets blown up. Something that will have no further relevance. I guess this is some interaction with the environment? Kinda random, but I guess I'll take it. Though I question the motivation for this scene because of what happens one block further. Viewer discretion is advised. Kids, stop watching here please. A cutscene interrupts gameplay to zoom in on an apartment and plays noises of porn. This goes on for about 20 seconds. Full-on porn sounds intertwined with security guard sound effects. I obviously can't play even a second of this. And if this wasn't enough to showcase that the author of this mod has a severe porn addiction, the next set piece is a bar, of which the walls are plastered with dozens of real-life images of nude models doing erotic poses, followed by a scene in which a naked woman model, I think you can infer, again with full real-life audio and everything. This cutscene lasts for 10 seconds before you can decide to leave, though it goes on indefinitely. I genuinely can't even begin to fathom how rotten your brain must be to include all this in an otherwise normal Half-Life mod. If for some reason you think that all this is fine to include in a Half-Life 1 mod, I may add that outside of this, the gameplay also simply sucks. Fights are way too hard, the soldiers' HP was buffed or alternatively the weapons were nerfed. There's close to no autosaving going on, meaning that if you forgot to hit your quick save button for a bit, you may genuinely lose up to 10 minutes of progress. On top of this, most of this section and really the entire mod consists of fetch quests. You find a locked door and then you have to find the keycard, then return. This is fine to do in principle. It is one of the fewer core elements of gameplay if you really boil gameplay mechanics down in linear FPS games. But usually they are at least disguised in a certain way to not have it be quite as repetitive. For example, turning a valve to disable steam on a pipe is essentially also a fetch quest. The hot steam coming out of the pipe is the blocked door, the valve is the keycard you have to go and find, and then you return to the now unlocked door to proceed. But obviously in actual gameplay, you don't classify this as the same thing as looking for a keycard. You really have to try and vary gameplay as a developer to have it be fun. And to have the only goal in your mod be to find a keycard to open doors gets repetitive after as little as 2 times in a row. This segment on Earth lasts for about 15 to 20 minutes, but feels like it's 4 times as long because of how awfully balanced it is. You may notice me having God mode in most of the footage because hell no, I'm not dealing with this. At this point I didn't even know that I was barely scratching the surface of how awfully unbalanced this mod got. We find the G-Man's vault. For some reason the G-Man needs cash. We place a mini nuke inside of it, then we get teleported to the next mission. To sum the first mission up, it may be the worst thing to ever hit the Half-Life modding scene. The premise of the next mission is that the G-Man is putting a chemical into Coca-Cola that allows him to literally blow up people that drink it. Because of this, he's now the world leader. To stop this from happening, we have to kill the scientist that made it before he ever made it. The premise is ridiculous, but all things considered, the segment was okay. Awfully balanced as per usual, not only in gameplay but also the weapon sound effects. I know weapon sounds are awfully mixed in Half-Life 1 and 2 as well, but this is a whole new level. I almost went deaf. This segment is perhaps the shortest as long as you don't get lost, which is very easy. Aesthetics wise it's fine as well. The only odd thing was the fact that it was literally the real-life Coca-Cola. It screams amateur to include real-life brands in mods and games, especially when it could have been Soda Pop, a confirmed existing drink in Half-Life already. We eventually kill the scientist and he's replaced by an IRT agent that will prevent the G-Man world domination before it ever happened, proving that in this mod's time travel logic, the past can be changed. I'm sure there won't be any contradictions to that. At the end we receive a new weapon that shoots homing projectiles, so a reskin of the Hive Hand. The reskinned weapons are the highlight of this mod honestly, outside of the sound design, and the fact they do close to no damage. They look interesting though. Anyways, we are then time traveled and placed into the next mission. This one is the best one this mod has to offer. The bar is obviously pretty low. We are now situated on Mars, which has been terraformed to allow for human life. The G-Man has once again taken over this place and uses it for military operations and expansion. To stop him, we have to cause a reactor core meltdown. Now, obviously I started this video off by saying that this is the worst Half-Life mod to exist. And I stand by that statement. And I am more saddened by that being the case because the Mars segment goes to show that there is a lot of wasted talent here. The first third of Mars was so well made that I suspected that it may have been made by someone else, which I don't think is the case looking at the credits. It's pretty balanced, the level design is interesting and well made, and most importantly, the gameplay is varied. There's still a slight lean towards fetch quests, but if the entire mod was the quality of this beginning Mars segment, this could have been an all-timer. My favorite segment was when we had to step into an underground area filled with toxic gas. It was deliberately built like a maze that hid both a keycard and a gas mask. Fun idea. The only criticism would be that there should have been an autosave and enough opportunity to heal yourself right before. And after this segment, it goes downhill again. Very fast. It starts with this great interaction with a Barney.
Freeman, right? I've got a message for you. Help is on its way. I smell an ambush. We'd better be careful.
The gameplay here starts to get confusing. There's a double door with 2 buttons that allow you to open one segment of it, but not the other side. Turns out that this means nothing, and that you won't be going here for a long while. You are actually supposed to go in a completely different direction to then arrive at the holy grail of awful fetch quests. You are tasked to find 7 antimatter orbs in the facility. This is literally just hunting for Easter eggs. On top of this, there is no indication for how many you found yet, so you better keep pen and paper to note down how many you collected. And most awesome of all, collecting all of them opens a random door in a random room of the facility with no indication of this being the case unless you happen to stumble into it beforehand. And as if this whole segment couldn't get any more awesome, 2 more porn posters. Obviously I hope you understand that I'm joking. This segment was awful. Again, the looks were fine, but everything else just sucked. There's also this disconnect in the characters here. There's soldiers firing at you while scientists just continue working right next to them. Is this supposed to be a commentary on modern day work environments? Eventually you find a few cables that cause the place to blow up once you cut them. Once this happens though, the G-Man appears. And just like you know and love the G-Man, who literally has time and space bending abilities, including being able to take people out of reality and place them in the void, he decides to use none of them, and instead does this.
Gordon Freeman in the flesh. I took the liberty of relieving you of your weapons. No regrets, Mr. Freeman.
I'm honestly at a loss for words. I would expect this from Crack Life, but this mod takes itself pretty seriously outside of these odd segments. Was this mod made by a 13-year-old? I wouldn't hope so given the images. Anyways, we escape and receive yet another weapon, a reskin of the Gluon gun. Mars, outside of the first 10 minutes or so, was awful in almost every way. The next mission takes place on the moon. The premise is basically the same as the last one, though our goal this time is to close a portal to Zen. This segment starts like the Mars one, even copying entire areas. It also has a cool aesthetic at the start, but then reverts to the same ones seen in all previous segments, which is another thing worth noting about this mod. Every mission starts out with a unique looking area and then just immediately morphs into the regular underground factory aesthetic that could really stem from any mod. The Earth mission starts with a city, then switches to underground factory. Coca-Cola factory turns underground factory. Mars station turns underground factory. Moon base turns underground factory. I would say this is fair to do since most assets are based on this setting given that Half-Life 1 is situated underground, but this mod proves every time that it is able to do environments differently, but just doesn't want to. The most unique thing to come out of the moon segment is these eggs. They are smaller versions of the grunt eggs as seen in Half-Life 1's Interloper. These all hatch once we start backtracking and release headcrabs and vortigons, sometimes an absurd amount of them. I do like this in theory though, being able to study the environment with the knowledge that you will most likely have to fight here soon. This would have been cool if the enemy amount was balanced better, and the environment's actually made for an interesting arena that isn't just two straight paths at different heights. Overall, the gameplay is actually kinda fine here, since it doesn't feature any HECU. It's just Zen aliens you're fighting. There are still moments here that aren't well balanced, but overall, this one is the best balanced one. This comes at the price of there not really being an objective. We are supposed to close a Zen portal, but we simply just don't do that? The mission ends before we achieve anything. Not sure if I missed something, but it seems like the creator simply forgot to include a portal being closed. To conclude this mission, it isn't bad, but it also fails to be memorable in any way. While writing the script, I at first totally forgot this mission even happened because it's just so generic and similar to the Mars one. Anyways, the next briefing describes that the G-Man is becoming more powerful. He has gone back in time and reverted all our previous activities. And then it describes a complicated time travel rule. The rule is that if a time traveler is killed within a normal I'm gonna just interrupt myself there. Time travel media is always a complicated mess, and honestly, the best rule is to not even try and explain it. This mod goes on to explain a large amount of rules that, spoiler alert, have no bearing or meaning in the story. They're pointless. I'm not sure if these are meant to be misdirections or plot twists, but the mod switches rules like 3 times in the few times it explains its story. Okay, other me is almost done explaining, I'm gonna let him continue. Oh boy, is he in for a ride. Our goal now is thus to kill the G-Man's parents, who originally existed in 1955. But the G-Man took them from there to the future year of 3025 as a way to hide them from us, so that we can't hinder him from being born. Making for a plot point that is almost interesting. As every mission, this segment starts interesting. We are in this mysterious floating library. We are then teleported to what is, for lack of a better term, the galactic treehouse of the G-Man. We read his journal in this eyesore of a new eye. What this explains is that Gordon Freeman's actual name is Gordon Mann, and that the G-Man is his father, who put him up for adoption. It also contradicts the rule of being able to change the past by saying that Gordon couldn't have died in Black Mesa because he was always gonna end up in the future. It then goes on to contradict its previous contradiction to explain that if we were to kill the G-Man or his parents, we would actually disappear. Just like the people in the intro, which is the only aspect of this I kinda thought was cool. It's rare that you get a throwback in Half-Life mods. Perhaps this was also just me looking for literally anything to enjoy about this mod. So it seems that it is now up to us to decide. Do we let the G-Man become more powerful, or do we stop him and wipe out our own existence? You know, ignoring everything that happened previously, this is kind of an interesting dilemma. I'm sure the ending will make this interesting choice justice. The environments continue to stay interesting for a short amount of time, including a chrome tank that I thought was fun, before shifting to underground factory aesthetics once more. Oh, remember how I mentioned that I had yet to see the peak of the unbalanced gameplay of this mod? Well, we have arrived. This mod decided it was a good idea to give the HECU the futuristic technology of being invisible. Fully. No sound cues. I'm also not talking transparent. They are fully invisible, literally the entire time. How the hell did this concept not get scrapped immediately? Let me remind you that they also have buffed health. So have fun looking for muzzle flash particles while your health drains away at an insanely rapid pace because they're probably standing next to you getting free headshots. This is genuine insanity. As per usual, most gameplay here is about finding a keycard or some other dumbass device then open some random door. This involves you teleporting to multiple locations back and forth and scrambling around the entire facility to find keys to random doors on the other side of the map, sometimes even on other maps. This is perhaps the most boring and torturous experience I've ever sat through in Half-Life modding. After half an hour of running back and forth, we finally arrive at the finale. We see the G-Man's parents, And because the creator of this mod wants to prove yet again that he's a misogynistic piece of shit, the mother is nude. This is genuinely insane. Why would the G-Man strip his own mother nude while trapping her? If both were at least naked, there could have been some lore reason perhaps to not being able to wear clothes in these tanks. But the only thing this can possibly hint at is an incestuous relationship between the G-Man and his mom. Do you get why I say this is the worst mod? But let's calm down. At least, after all this torture, the display of porn addiction, the most unfun level design and gameplay in general, most awful game design to ever exist, we at least have the finale of the story. The decision if we kill the G-Man's parents or not. Right? Well, fucking no. Because the G-Man then teleports in and offers you a job for literally no reason. And if you plan on saying no, as would be the obvious answer at this point in the story, he simply turns your brain into mush and puts you in a mental institution. What? And if you do decide to work with him, the game just ends. What? Why was the story this needlessly complicated and over-explained if it leads nowhere? What in the fuck does this mean? How can you fuck up a plot point this badly? There was literally no reason to play this. And I don't want to have you sit through that, but I had to let it out at least once. To conclude, this mod offers shitty gameplay, a shitty, overcomplicated story that leads genuinely, and I mean genuinely, nowhere in every sense of the word, after leading you on for ages about the rules of time travel and stuff, just to not have it matter in the slightest. It also offers alright level design in terms of looks, at least whenever it doesn't move to boring bland factory environments. It offers awfully loud weapons, and of course, a clear showcase of porn addiction. And even though one could try to argue that there are worse mods out there, specifically ones made by beginners that barely even feature gameplay, I think that this mod is worse. Because it clearly showcases that the creator of this mod had the talent to make something good and just decided to make this misogynistic abomination instead. No mod has frustrated me this much or made me this mad ever. It was the worst experience I've ever had in gaming. So, do not check this mod out. I want to emphasize that you obviously should not go harass the creator or try to contact them at all. Leave them alone. That's not justified ever. And this mod is 24 years old, so that's more time past than most people watching have lived. Who knows what the creator is like now? Hopefully a lot less weird. But yeah, this mod sucks. Don't play it, please. If you were somehow entertained by this video, consider subscribing. And as I said, this video will likely be demonetized, so consider becoming a member or donating to help me get something out of this torturous experience at least. But any support is appreciated, as always, of course. It's very likely that this is my last video before Half-Life 3 gets announced, so subscribing right now is a no-brainer. And yeah, otherwise, thank you for watching.
I can't take much more of this. I wish it hadn't come to this.